Okay, guys, we're going to get going. Hope everybody's doing well. And we are picking up. If you have Rav Arush's book, The Garden of Wisdom, we're starting in chapter 4 today. And we're entering a part, a very geschmacka part in the story. There's a lot in Rav Arush's book on this. We'll probably go through a lot of it today, but not all of it. There's some beautiful points from Rav Kivak, and a lot of important advice in general for a person. We're going to touch on some important topics today of jealousy, of self-worth, and a number of other important things. Emunah, confidence. So let's get right into it. So the story continues like this. If you remember, we're at the point where we're talking about the Tam, the life of the Tam, and his work as a shoemaker. Remember, the Tam he wasn't so bright, he wasn't a fast learner, he wasn't so dexterous, he wasn't, good with his hands, but he did his job with simcha. He ate his food with simcha, he drank his drink with simcha, he wore his clothes with simcha. He was happy and thankful for everything that he had. And now we're going to talk about his work. What did he do in his job? So it says like this: when he would finish a shoe. And minastam, usually when he finished a shoe, it kind of had like 3 points. Meaning, that's not good. He kind of made the shoe and it was like kind of came to a point here, a point here, a point there. It wasn't such a nice shoe, a 3-pointed shoe. Remember, the Chochom in our story over here, he likes pointy shoes, but they have to be nice and they come to one singular point and everything is smooth and nice. The Tom's shoes were the points weren't all where they're supposed to be, let's say. This was the shoes that he created. He wasn't really the greatest at his craft. That's just his lot. Kanal. But he would pick up this shoe that he made, this funny looking 3-pointed shoe, and hold it up, and he would praise this shoe that he made a lot. Welcome, Nancy. And he would be very delighted by it, and he would say, Ishti, kama yafa v'nifla haminal hazeh. My wife, how wonderful is this shoe that I just made? It's not a nice shoe. It's 3-pointed. He knows, but he would pick it up. He would be so happy with it, and he would say to his wife, how beautiful is this shoe that I just made? Kama masoik haminal hazeh. How sweet is this shoe? Kama minal shel dvash v'tzuker. What a shoe of honey and sugar is this shoe. What a special shoe. Page 131, by the way, in there. So then his wonderfully supportive wife would say to him, oh yeah, im kain, if your shoe's so nice, husband, then why is it that all the other shoemakers get 3 gold coins for their shoes, and you only get half of a taler for your shoe, which is which is 1.5 gold coins. Right? So he's picking up this shoe that he made. He made a shoe, it's not so nice, it's not so symmetrical, and he's praising it. How amazing is this shoe? What a special shoe. What a nice shoe. And his wife says, oh yeah? If your shoe is so nice, why are you getting half the price of everybody else? Husband, right? Hey Shivla. So he would answer her, and this is could be my favorite line in the whole story, but one of my very, very favorite lines and favorite points in the whole story. He answered her, Mali bazeh. What does that have to do with me? What does the amount that my competitors are charging for their shoes have anything to do with me? Zeh ma'aseh shaloi, zeh ma'aseh shali. That's his business, and this is my business. That's his doing, this is my doing. Ve'oid, lama lanu l'daber ma'acherim. And also, what do we have to speak about other people for? Haloi naschil lachshoiv, kama v'chama ani marviach min al zeh miyad liyad. Let's just think for a second. How much am I profiting from this shoe from hand to hand? Meaning just, selling to the guy, what do I make? Ha'or hu bakach, the leather costs a certain amount. Ha'zefes v'achutim, and the tar and the threads cost bakach a certain amount. V'sharei devarim v'kiyotzu bakach, and all the rest of the ingredients, or the whatever they're called, the pieces of the shoe, they cost this much. Lapkis, which are the hamilui shabena, which is it's the liner, I guess. Bakach v'ata, and now ani marviach miyad liyad asar gedolim. So I'm making 10 large coins, whatever they are, $10, let's say, on this shoe. Umachpadli revach hazeh miyad liyad. So that's all I need to know, basically. Why should I care what someone else is doing when I know that I'm making my shoe and I have a certain amount of profit from it, and I got it all worked out? So that's the portion of the story that we're going to work on today and probably next week also. So there's a lot to talk about here. My favorite line over here, let's just give it a simple treatment right now and then we'll get into it again later on. But what a beautiful, beautiful piece of wisdom. What a beautiful piece of advice. And that is to just sort of mind my own business. How down can a person get? How bad can a person feel about themselves when they're looking always to other people? What does my friend have? What's their bank account like? What's their car like? What's their house like? What are their children like? What is their spouse like? Why do they have all of this and I don't have that? Right? So it can drive a person crazy. As opposed to looking at, like the way of the Tam, looking at everything in life and knowing that this is exactly what is meant for me. This is what I need. This is going to be the main point of this whole section of the story. So let's we can look a little bit into Rav Kivak over here, and then we'll go to Rav Arush. So like this, he says like this. So the Tam answers his wife betamimus, in his Tam way, in his way of simplicity, right? And so he says we can transport this into our own lives. Imagine, he says, he's talking about the way we look at, the way we think of ourselves, or other people might think of us in our avodas Hashem. So let's say, he says, L'mashal, k'sha'omrim la'adam lo hispalal maspik b'kavana. Let's say someone said to you, you're really not praying with much fire, with much intention. Let's assume they said it in a nice way, hopefully. Right? So, what's the answer to that? What is the answer to that? Let's say, Taka, someone goes to shul and starts to daven and prays, and the prayer is not really, their mind is not focused, it's not strong, it's not powerful, they're kind of just mumbling through it. Like we say when we begin to pray sometimes, let's get ready to mumble. Right? Hopefully not. That's not what we want to do. Right? But let's say he did this. So how is a person supposed to look at it? Let's say really that's the way I daven. Is the answer to say, oh, you're right, I'm terrible, and look at you, you're on fire, and I'm wow, you're right, that was useless, and I'm not good at this. Is that the way to do it? So he says, Yana. You should answer, Yesh li revach miyad liyad, anisi amen yehesh me rabba. Forget it. You're right. I didn't daven so good, but you know what? I made some profit here today. I answered amen yehesh me rabba, after Kaddish, and I said it good. And that's my profit for today. Right? And when we're asking how much did the leather cost? How much did the tar cost? How much did the threads cost and everything? There's a way to look at this that Rav Kivak is saying over here, which is like this. So everybody knows, if you had anything to do with business, a particular manufacturing an item, there's something called the cost of goods sold. Okay, in your accounting line. You want to make, let's just say you want to make a bottle of wine. So you got to know how much is the cost of farming involved in those grapes. How much is the cost of the harvest? How much is the cost of the yeast and the labor involved in processing it and pressing it? And how much does the bottle cost? How much does the capsule cost? How much does the cork cost? The label? All these things you have to think about go into the cost of this item, right? So a person has to think about this, he's saying over here, in an interesting way. When you're thinking about your own, let's call it performance in life, the way that you are going through life and doing the things that you're doing. So when you look at somebody, one person, there's a guy who davens in our shul here, I won't say his name, but he's like plugged into something. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it takes him like probably 4 times as long as everyone else to daven. We're all already eating shalosh seudos, and he's still standing there by himself, so slow, quiet, right? He's so hyper focused, and he's in something deep, right? So you could look at him and you could say, well, he's doing it right. So what's wrong with the rest of us? Shlemiels, right? Okay, that's one way to look at it. But there's another aspect to it. And that is that everybody has to look at themselves as a unique individual with a unique mission in the world. And I came up with this mashal to understand this. Tell me if this makes sense to you. Imagine you got a guy who's like kind of hippie-ish, who's really like into meditation. So he comes to you and he says, oh, today, when I came to daven with everybody, so I came early and I sat and I meditated and I got into a very deep state of consciousness, and I really, let through a lot of things, and then I had a very deep experience, a deep meditative spiritual experience in my prayer, and afterwards I went for a walk and I contemplated it, and I was really in a deep place. And you're thinking to yourself, wow, I ran in and I prayed and I said some things from my heart, and that's it, and then I had to go. And this guy is preparing and meditating and doing and going and walking and kind of debriefing and journaling and doing all of this stuff to really, really get, working breath work and all these things. And you're like, why am I even bothering, you might think? What am I even bothering to pray for? This guy is really doing it, right? So step back and say, wait a second. There's a whole different set of costs and set of factors that we have to think about. That guy's a single guy. He's not married. He doesn't really have a good place to live. He's kind of free. He's free floating. There's some positives to that. But I have a wonderful family. I have a wife and children, and I have to spend time with them, and I have to take care of them, and I have to learn with my children and help them with their homework, and I got to go out and have a job so I can have money to provide for my family. And I like to daven, but I don't have so much spare time. So when I come, I pack it into a few short things. These things are all kind of like the cost. He said that the shoemaker is saying, right? He's saying, so I got to pay for the leather. I got to pay for the soles. I got to pay for the tar. I got to pay for the stitching. And then at the end, I have a profit, right? I have all these factors in my life that are what Hashem gave me. And it's the person that I'm supposed to be and the things I have to do, right? And they're good things and they're meant for me. So by the time I take care of all these things and I try to be, a good wife and a good mother and a good friend, and I try to do good things for the community, and I do all these things, so maybe I don't have time to be the hippie-ish person who has hours and hours and hours to meditate. And maybe that's exactly good for them right now. And that's exactly what they're supposed to be doing. But for me, it's not the right thing. So this is the way he's understanding the shoemaker's response over here. And at the same time, the ze ma'aseh shaloi, ze ma'aseh shali. That's that person's ma'aseh, that's their situation, and this is my situation. There's no reason for me to look at another person and think, why can't I be like that person? And as we've said many times before, if I spend my life trying to be like other people, I never understand who I am, what my mission is, and I will not accomplish the thing that Hashem put me here to do. If I'm not trying to be myself, I can't accomplish the mission that Hashem put me here to do. And if I'm not accomplishing my mission, if I'm not working towards something meaningful, I will never be happy. Right? These are important things. So this is kind of the first aspect that Rav Kivak brings in here. Very, very important point. And Rav Arush is going to hit on this in numerous places throughout this chapter. There's a lot here, and we won't get through it all, but we'll go through a few things here. So let's go to page 131, if you want to see. So the first thing is the shoemaker's happiness with his shoe. It's not a good shoe. Remember, he didn't do a good job, but he's very, very happy with it. He's proud of it. He's happy with it. So one of the things he says, this is one of Rabbi Nachman's most salient teachings. A person should be happy with his lot in life, no matter how blemished or imperfect it might be. Every single person in the world is flawed. We're all imperfect. We're all blemished. This certain sug of people that sometimes I talk about, who find it very, very difficult to get married, but because they find it very difficult to accept or commit to anybody, because they're constantly worried what's going to be. The person is not perfect, and I see this. I love to tell people, it doesn't matter who you pick. They're going to be really flawed, a lot. And every single spouse is extremely flawed. We all have a lot of work to do. And the main thing I try to get across to people when they're trying to get married is the main thing is to find a partner who wants to work together with you to build a relationship and to work through things, because that's what it's going to be all about, is working through things, because we're all flawed. So this is the thing. We have to be happy with our lot in life no matter how blemished or imperfect it may be. Read the bottom paragraph. The simple one didn't fool himself about a situation in life. He was well aware of his shortcomings and of his hardships. He knew that he lacked both high IQ and dexterity. He was cognizant of the fact that he was a slow learner. In spite of it all, how could he be happy? So it was Emunah that helped him to be able to do this. He knew that if he had an apparent shortcoming, it was only because Hashem created him that way in order to facilitate his soul correction and fulfillment of his mission in this sorely limited physical life on earth. So in other words, we're all here for a reason. We all have things that we have to accomplish. And the circumstances that Hashem gave us, the limitations and the talents that Hashem gave us are specifically tailored for us to be able to accomplish what we're supposed to accomplish. And that's why we have them. So he brings next a story. So we're gonna have to ask a lot of questions. I'm gonna pre-ask a question that he's gonna ask a little bit later. But we'll come back to it. But if you look to page 1 second. Where is it? If you look to page 137, right? So we're going to come back to this, but we're going to ask this question. because it's an important question. I think it's kind of going to guide us through this. Why should we be happy? How can we be happy with something that's imperfect? And why is that? Why is it okay to just say I'm imperfect? Shouldn't I be striving to get as close to perfection as I can? Don't I want to do the best I can? Don't I want to be good at something? Don't I want to be great? Why should I accept? Why is it okay to be in such a state and of imperfection? Right? So let's not look at the answer. Let's remember this is an important question. And why does Hashem put us in a situation where we're not good at something? Why does Hashem put us in a situation where we're struggling through something? And it's difficult. And why does Hashem put us in a situation where we're trying to do something and we're failing? And we have to keep coming back to it. What's the point? What's happening? We need to understand this. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning now. So he brings a beautiful story of Eliyahu Hanavi, prophet Elijah, and how he came to Rabbi Akiva. And like this. The story is like this. So Rabbi Akiva was a ignoramus, as they like to say. He didn't know how to learn. He didn't know the Aleph Beis. And he was a laborer. He worked as a wood chopper for the wealthiest Jew in town, around in the country, called Kalba Savua, which means satiated dog, by the way. And he had a beautiful daughter called Rachel. And Rachel was able to see in Rabbi Akiva his true nature. Rachel was able to see that he was mamash a diamond, but he was an unpolished diamond. She saw this beautiful nature of him. And so she said to her father, I want to marry this person, he's going to be something amazing. And Kalba Savua said, not on my watch, you're not. If you marry him, I'm cutting you off completely from the family fortune, you're getting nothing from me. And so she got married to him, and they had nothing. And they slept in a place, all they had was straw to cover them, to sleep on and to cover them. That's how they slept. And every morning, Rabbi Akiva would pick the straw out of his wife's hair and tell her, one day, I'm going to have a beautiful, precious gold crown. I wasn't gold or silver, but whatever. Gold crown for your hair. And this is the way they lived. So one time, Eliyahu Hanavi came. They were feeling a little bit down, I guess. Eliyahu Hanavi came to Rabbi Akiva and Rachel, his wife. And he said to them, my wife just had a baby, and we are, a few buildings over, and the baby is cold, and we have nothing to keep the baby warm. Could you perhaps spare some straw to help our baby stay warm? And so they said, Avada, sure, we have plenty of straw. Please take some straw for your baby, and we wish you well. And Eliyahu Hanavi left, and Rabbi Akiva said to his wife, wow, look at this. We thought that we don't have anything. And we see now that we had plenty of straw, and there was someone that didn't even have what we had. And through this they were strengthened, and Rabbi Akiva was able to begin his journey. He had a little bit of encouragement to begin his journey. So the question is, very obvious, why didn't Eliyahu Hanavi help him more? Why didn't Eliyahu Hanavi grab him and say, you need to go to this yeshiva over here, and you're going to do great. And here, I'll pay your way, I'll give you money, right? Why did he just give him a little nudge of encouragement, right?
He had a huge path.
So one of the things is that it's from that very place that he came, that place of being impoverished, that enabled him to become the person that he became, right? The place that he was able to go and learn Torah with no desire for anything else. Right? You ever see these guys? I don't know how many people here get to venture into seeing people learning in a kollel or a yeshiva, right? So you have some boys or men who are very diligent, and they spend all their time. They're very careful. And they don't waste time. And you have other guys that spend more time in the coffee room than in the yeshiva, right? And they're more into the latest this, the latest that, right? So Rabbi Akiva had no pull towards anything. He was used to having nothing. And so he was able to do something much greater than he would have been otherwise. He had a drive. He came from that place. Eliyahu Hanavi knew that it's him himself in his situation that is going to propel him forward. And it was good. Most people would look and say, wow, Nebuch, it's a terrible situation to be impoverished, to only have straw and to be in such a situation. But it was this place that led him to become what, some people say he was the greatest sage that ever lived. The greatest rabbi in the history of Klal Yisrael. Right? So meaning that there was something there that was important. And if a person would have emunah and accept their imperfection, he might have thought, he could have just thought, wow, I'm a nebuch, I'm not taking care of my wife, I'm stupid, I'm not learning. He could have just been depressed and sad and just, coward. But he didn't do that. He said, I am who I am and I'm going. I'm taking who I am and I'm doing what I have to do. Like the Tam, I'm doing. And how did he start off, Rabbi Akiva? It's very much like the story of the Tam. He started off Aleph, and then Beis, and then Gimel. And he kept going, letter by letter, word by word, step by step. And he became the greatest rabbi in history. Right? Unbelievable. This is what he needed. Right? So let's turn over to page 135. So we're learning from this that what we might think are our shortcomings or our imperfections are really very important, and they're there for a reason. They're gonna do something for us. So look at the second paragraph of page 135. Pay close attention. If a person ignores his shortcomings or pretends that they don't exist, he's fooling himself, and his happiness won't be genuine or complete. Such self-deception is the product of arrogance, not emunah. But just as the simple one was fully aware of his disadvantages, he was nonetheless happy. This is the true formula for success. So, in other words, it's not about ignoring our challenges or our difficulties. It's about acknowledging them and accepting them and with emunah. It could go two ways. So I'll tell you, there's a person that I know who struggles with anger and struggles with arrogance. These two things often go hand in hand. This person is aware of these struggles, Baruch Hashem, and works on them. But there was a time when he wasn't. And you know what that looked like? Anger and hate of people, and it was a terrible situation. But when this person was ready to look at himself with a true perspective, without worry, just with emunah, and say, wow, I have this problem of arrogance, I have this problem of anger. Now he has a different life. And he's making tikkunim, he's fixing things, he's doing amazing. Right? Because he's willing to look at them and willing to accept them, as opposed to just standing up and saying everyone else is wrong. Right? And ignoring his own shortcomings. So that's one aspect, is that actually identifying what your shortcomings are and then working on them. But the other aspect is much simpler. And that's just accepting, this is the person that I am right now, and this is the person that Hashem wants me to be. Let's say you have a person who doesn't have such a quick mind, and they're in the regular Jewish yeshiva system. Right? So they have to learn, and they see some of the other people in the class are way more advanced, and they're able to understand things way above. So that boy, it's a big problem actually, that people think like this. That boy feels useless and feels worthless because he's not able to think his brain isn't as fast and as deep thinking and able to process such complicated things. So he thinks he's a second class citizen. He thinks he's worthless compared to these people. Mm-hmm. Right? So, a person has to know, okay, I don't have to be the top of the class. I just have to put in my effort to learn to the best of my ability, and that's what Hashem wants from me. And it's perfect for me. I have to just accept, okay, I'm not the top of the class. Right? I know many of us grew up in a world where parents liked to say, that you're the best. You can do anything, right? I don't know if that's like the end of my generation and the beginning of future generations, right? Like no one fails school, everyone gets a trophy, everyone is the best, right? I'm not really complaining that much about this, don't worry, right? But honestly, it's important sometimes to just be okay with the fact that you're not the best player on the team, right? But maybe, perhaps, you're not the best player on the team, but you're that player on the team that everybody likes and keeps everybody's spirits up. Or maybe you're not the best player on the team and you don't keep people's spirits up. Maybe that also. And you have to know that that's who you are and just do your part. Right? There's reasons for everything. So we're gonna see in a little bit what some of the reasons might be. Okay? Let's keep going. So he brings a point down here. Look at the bottom of page 135. Don't ever lose heart. Look how the great tzaddikim rose to lofty personal and spiritual heights by the virtue of their shortcomings in life. Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa was utterly poor, yet the whole world received sustenance in his virtue. Remember the stories of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa? How he would fast when there was a drought, and they would declare a public fast. So they would put on sackcloth and ashes, and they would remove their shoes. So it says, the Gemara says that as soon as Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, he took off his shoe, and as soon as his foot touched the ground, the rain began to fall. He was so holy, and he ate only a handful of carob. That's all he had. That's all he ate, and the Gemara says that through those few keruvim that he ate, the whole entire world was sustained in his merit, right? So, but you could have looked at him and said, "Oh, Nebuch, this guy's destitute, this guy's poor," right? You might have thought. Who else? The Chazon Ish was sickly. He was not in good health. Lubavitcher Rebbe, unbelievably, was childless. Lubavitcher Rebbe didn't have children, right? The Kloisenberger Rebbe was a Holocaust survivor who lost a wife and 11 children. There's amazing stories about the Kloisenberger Rebbe. And he came out of the Holocaust. He gave people tremendous strength in DP camps. He came to America. He married again and raised a whole new family. Imagine, no one would bat an eye if he said, "That's it, I'm out. I'm done." Right? But he became the great Kloisenberger Rebbe out of this. Plenty of things to look at and say, Nebuch, this person has tremendous shortcomings. This person is not in a good state. But they took it. People mistakenly look at tzaddikim who are happy with their lot in life as if they were born into a lap of luxury. Indeed, the fact that they accepted their difficulties in life with emunah and joy is what made them truly great. So he says, here's a good klal. Here's a major point. The simple one's secret to success is a lesson to us all. Greatness does not bring happiness. Happiness brings greatness. You hear this? Greatness does not bring happiness. Happiness brings greatness. Very, very gewaldic. So, like we always say, what's one of our main lines? Happiness is a choice. If you choose to work towards happiness, then you can move your life in a good way. But the enemy is sadness, is yush, is despair, and is loneliness. It's the enemy, right? So we got to get out. We got to be together. We got to be positive with positive, good, happy energy. This is what's going to propel us forward and enable us to do good things, which is important. Okay, so let's see. So we're going to get to this thing now. Look on the bottom of page 136. This is also a fantastic. This is probably one of the best parts of what we're going to look at today. The title of this section is Striving and Rejoicing. The bottom of page 136. So, main question. This shoemaker, the Tam, he makes the shoe. It doesn't look so good. It's got 3 points. It's supposed to be nice and smooth with one point at the end, right? It's not a great shoe. And he's just happy with it, and he praises it. What a great shoe I just made. Amazing. I'm so happy with this shoe. What a sweet honey sugar shoe this is, he says. So why don't you just fix the shoe? Make a better shoe. Why are you so happy with the shoe? Take some lessons, figure it out, fix the shoe, right? What's going on here? So he says, certainly, Hashem wants us to be the very best we can be. Right? Hashem wants us to be the best we can be. And we should strive, and we should try our best to do good, of course, right? But once we've put in our best effort, we must understand that the outcome of anything we do is in Hashem's hands. We must accept that outcome with love and joy. So, a few of you, who's here? A number of you here today, we've spoken about this before in different situations, and it's a really, really important aspect of emunah and of general good rules for life. And that is that not everything is in our control, and especially other people are not in our control. And sometimes the only thing we can do is to do our part, is to put in our best effort in practically doing things, to daven that it should be good, right? And that's all we can do. And the outcome is up to the Ribbon Hashem, is up to Hashem. Right? Nebuch, you have situations where there's families where the parents go, the parent goes one way and the kids go the other way. Or the kids go one way and the parent goes the other way. Right? And it can be very painful and very difficult. And one of the things that a parent has to remember, by the way, anyone who has kids knows that I think I told you this before, that before my wife and I had kids, I remember looking at families and seeing kids that were like misbehaving in public places, and saying to myself, oh, when I have children, I'm not going to let them behave that way. When I'm a parent, I'm going to raise my kids different than that, right? Which is the most ridiculous. If you have kids, you know it's the stupidest statement. It's the most ridiculous statement you could make. Because when the kids are born, you see right away, they all have a different neshama. They all have different temperaments, different abilities, different challenges, and Hashem gave them to you, and you have to just do your best and do your part. But they're gonna continue to be, each one, a unique individual entity, their own neshama, their own selves, and they're gonna have to go down their own path, and they're gonna have to face their own battles and deal with their own difficulties, and our job is to be a guide and to be a support and to do our best to do our part in that, right? But sometimes it's important for a parent to know that I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do what I can, and I'm going to pray my heart out for my children. But at a certain point, I have to say, the way that it comes out is up to Hashem. This is something that we've talked about before. He's saying something different over here, along the same lines. He's saying that with my, the avodah of the tam over here, in his shoemaking abilities, and in everything else in life also that we face. Not only these very serious things that we have with our children, for example, but whether it's my job, whether it's my household, whether it's my avodas Hashem, my learning, my davening, the things I do in my community, right? All of these things, I have to know that I have to do my part, but the outcome is not up to me. So I have to try, I have to strive, and I shouldn't be happy with the three-pointed shoe, with the malformed, lopsided, right, asymmetrical shoe that is created over here. I shouldn't try to make a asymmetrical, malformed shoe. But when I put all my koiches in, and I try hard, and I really do a true effort in what I'm doing, and I pray for help, and it comes out asymmetrical and misshapen, then I have to be happy. I have to love it. I have to be happy that this is the Ratzon Hashem. This is what Hashem wants from me. So he breaks it up now, look down, into two places. This comes up in a few different ways. Before the fact and after the fact. So this is it. Before the fact, we strive to do our very best. We study hard, we invest in preparation, we do our utmost to make the wisest decisions, and we seek the best advice. Right? But after the fact, we rejoice in the outcome, whatever it may be, because that is Hashem's will. We learn from our mistakes and resolve to do better. But we don't fret about them or our deficiencies. In other words, Hashem put me here. Hashem gave me these talents. He gave me these abilities. And I'm going to do my part. And the outcome is in Hashem's hands. As long as I'm really trying and doing my best. I can't look back and be upset. He says in another place over here that it's tantamount to heresy to say such a thing. To look back at the past and say, I should have done better, I could have done better, right? Or this should not have ended up like this. You can't say that. It happened. This was Ratzon Hashem. That's the way it's supposed to be. But it's important. And especially if you're a person who thinks in the way of tikkun. If you're a person who's linear and organized and scheduled and sees the world in a very, like scientific type of way. You have to make this chiluk between before and after. Before, I'm always trying. I'm always striving. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to do my best. I'm asking advice. I'm doing everything I can. But then, I have to let go. And I have to say, after I did everything I was supposed to do, I did the best I could, the outcome is up to Hashem. We're going to take it a step farther in a second. Right? But let's ask the question. So, why? So I do my best. I try hard, and I do everything I can, and I fail. Why on earth is Hashem putting me in such a situation? And why should I be happy about it? I work hard, and I fail. Why, Hashem? Why are you making me fail? Right? So that's one temptation, is to say, why Hashem? I tried so hard, and now you're turning your back on me? That's it, I'm out of here. Or that's it, I'm not trying anymore. I'm not putting myself out there anymore. This is one way to look at it, and it's not the right way. So, let's look at this. We have to understand that everything that happens to us, everything that we experience, is there for our benefit. And we just maybe don't realize it exactly. So let's look at Rav Arush brings one example, and we'll try and speak out some examples also. And everyone can think in our minds, how does this relate to me? Maybe. So he says an example like this on page 138. He says, imagine you're just learning to drive. Happens to be Hashgacha Pratis that I gave my daughter her first driving lesson this week. She did great, Baruch Hashem. But so it's your final driver's test. You're going to get your driver's license. And you studied. You did all the book learning. You had the driving lessons. You practiced with your parents and you got everything down. You're doing it right? And then you go do the test, and the last minute when you're doing that parallel parking test, I don't know, he says you get a pothole, which doesn't make sense to me, but in my version of the story, you just nudge the car behind you a little bit, right? You hit that car behind you, just a little love tap, right? And the guy's like, come on, you just hit the car, right? And at that point you fail the test. And so what are you thinking as a 16-year-old teenager? You're devastated. My life is over. I can't believe I failed this test. And all my friends passed, and I'm so embarrassed, and I was going to go and drive everybody today, and I can't, right? It's the end of the world, mamish. Right? So, he says, how do you know? You shouldn't think that. You should think right away that, okay, I failed this test. This is what Hashem wants. This is the best thing for me right now, is that I failed this test. So he explains, maybe in this story, story is to help us to understand what could be going on in a person's life. In this story, okay, you were good and you did all your work and you practiced, but you know what? You only practiced in your neighborhood. You haven't been out onto the highway. You haven't been on the 401, right? You haven't been on the Gardner, the QEW, the 407, right? These places are a mess, right? There's accidents every single day. You haven't been there yet. You're not ready for that. And so Hashem didn't want you to have your license yet. Because if you got that and you went out onto the 401, there's something disastrous could happen, chas v'shalom. And Hashem didn't want that. So you know what? Hashem wanted you to take some more time and get a little bit more careful, get a little bit more experience, so when it came time to be out there, you would be ready. It could be in another example that's not in the book over here. And please, nobody get upset. This is not a across the board statement. It's not about everybody. It's just a one individual, unique situation, because I've seen this with many different outcomes and many different reasons after the fact. You have a person, once again, who is struggling to find a shidduch, and they're getting older, and maybe they've been dating already for 5-10 years, and they can't get married. They can't get married, right? So I mentioned a few times that there's, I think, three people that I know that they were struggling in dating literally for approaching 10 years and even more than 10 years, and they couldn't get married. And it ended up in the end that they ended up marrying someone who was much younger than them. And in the beginning, that age gap, if it's when they're very young, it's not acceptable. Like when he was ready to get married, let's say at 26, she was 16. It doesn't fly, right? But when he was 36 and she was 26, and she had some life experience, and she was working, and she was it worked. Why didn't he get married when he was 26 and really wanted to? And he's crying to Hashem. Why? Why are you leaving me alone? All my friends are getting married. My friends are having families. Why am I left behind? Right? And really, he had a soulmate. He had a person who was perfect for him, meant for him, from Shemayim. And it just wasn't the right time yet. He had to wait. And the fact that he didn't marry somebody else, and he didn't do something stupid, but rather he kept working and trying, he ended up getting married. And let me tell you, in all the situations I've seen this happen, they are such an amazing couple. And they're perfect for each other. It's like, and they're unique also, so it was hard. It's like that it seems like they're the only ones for each other in the whole world. And they have beautiful families, and it's so sweet, and they're happy. But they had to go through that. In another situation, it could be, this is the part that I'm saying is not across the board, it could be that and it could be for them also, that you're not getting married, just like the driver's test. Let's say you have a guy who is like this type of guy that we're talking about, who has a real problem with anger and arrogance. And if he would get married as a young person without life experience, and without time to reflect on himself, without time to understand himself and work on himself, right? He'd end up being an abuser, chas v'shalom. He'd end up in a terrible relationship, and he'd end up hurting somebody, God forbid, right? Maybe the reason why he's struggling to find a soulmate, he's struggling to find the person he's supposed to marry, it's because he's really not ready. He thinks he's ready, but he's not. He has to work through these things so he can be a great husband, right? Same thing, you could switch it with a lady and another midah also, right? There's things that have to be figured out. So, in other words, we're saying, why does Hashem seem to let us fail? Why are my shortcomings okay, right? And it's this. It's if I try to do something and I'm not so great at it, and I seem to fail, and I'm not moving forward with it, it's like Hashem is saying, it's okay, you're not ready for this yet. I need you to stay back here right now. There's another thing he brings over here somewhere. where, yeah, here we go. He says, the bottom of 138. In our tale at hand, in the story of the shoemaker over here, the Tam, instant success at shoemaking would have not been good for the simple one. Initial success and wealth would have enabled him to cultivate his steadfast would not have enabled him to cultivate his steadfast emunah and superb character traits. Spiritually speaking, we must all build worthy vessels to receive divine abundance. For example, without the qualities of humility and responsibility, success and wealth are detrimental to a person. Right? So, I don't have specific statistics here, and this is total hearsay. I've heard this in a few different places, but it's been told to me, I've heard, that generally speaking, ruba de ruba, most of the time, people who win the lottery end up cursing the day that they won the lottery, because it puts them into a terrible situation. I'm willing to try the test. It's okay. Why? Because they don't have, they're not ready. What happens, in a spiritual way? Sometimes we have to work through, we have to build up our vessels to be able to receive the light that we're looking for. It's said about the learning of Kabbalah, for example, maybe I mentioned this before, that sometimes a person is trying to get involved in the limud of Kabbalah, but it's not going. It's not flowing. It's a hard limud to get into. It's very difficult. And for it to flow is especially difficult. And so this is one of the things that they say. That they say that with when you're learning Kabbalah, it's not just about like an academic type of learning where you have to, memorize terms. It's actually a person has to build within themselves the spiritual vessels to be able to receive that light of this very high Torah of Kabbalah. So it's a process. So Hashem, I tried. Come on, I'm putting in the time. I'm trying to learn. I got the book and everything, and I'm trying hard. I'm trying to listen to shiurim, and it's just not going in. It's not going in. Why? And really, if Hashem could answer you in this particular situation, it might be that, you know what? I can't do that to you right now. Because if I put that light into you right now, it's going to shatter your vessels. It's going to break you. It's going to destroy you. You're not ready for this light yet. You need to build up the kelim, the vessels, to be able to receive that. And then, at some point, all of a sudden, the Kabbalah starts to flow. Right? It starts to flow. It's the same information. It's just spiritually, we weren't ready for it. Hashem, I need millions of dollars. Please, please, please. No. Trust me. Don't take it yet. Keep praying. Keep working at what you're doing. Keep using your talents, and keep clocking in with your shortcomings also. And that's building up what needs to be built up to make you who you need to be for when that $1 million is ready to come, or whatever it is. Right? For when that shidduch's ready to come, when the children are ready to come, when the menuchas nefesh is ready to come, whatever it is that we're looking for. Right? So he says, if you look at the top of 139, as long as a person has not yet rid himself of arrogance, then success is not a blessing. This is one of the things I remember seeing in Reb Nosson, and it being a very important thing for me to see, because I always wondered, we have this concept of Yerida and Aliyah, that we're always, before we can go up, we always have to come down first. And we have to go up, like we say, like the stock market. We want to go up and then down, but then up higher and then down and up higher, right? Like the way the stock market is supposed to go, we say, right? But why? Hashem, why? Why does it have to be so hard? Why do I have to fall all the time? Why do I have to be doing okay and then crash and then go up again? Why, Hashem? Right? And so we're giving a lot of insight into this idea right now. But the first time I heard it was in Reb Nosson, and he said, because if we would just keep going up all the time and be successful all the time, as our success goes up, our arrogance would go up right along with it. We would just become haughty, arrogant people, and we would forget about Hashem. We would totally forget about Hashem. So it's not a blessing to have success if the arrogance is not being checked when that happens, which is such an important idea. So this is the inyan, and I think we'll finish over here. We're getting to the time over here with this inyan of before and after. Is that he reviews it on page 140 that we have to make every effort we can to do our part and to try and improve ourselves and to try to hone our skills in our job, in our family life, in our community life, in our davening, in our learning, in our tzedakah, in our chesed, in everything. We've got to try and be better. We've got to try to be the best that we can be and put in effort and get advice, right? But then, when we're doing that, we have to be able to say, okay, I tried and it didn't work. Oh, what a beautiful shoe. What a beautiful shoe. Look at this malshapen shoe that didn't turn out the way I wanted it to turn out. It's beautiful. Why is it beautiful? Because I don't know how it's supposed to turn out. If I decided how everything should turn out, it would be a disaster. Hashem knows what I need right now. So the way that it turns out is actually the most beautiful way that it could possibly turn out. The shoe that came out, even though it was shaped funny, it's actually the perfect, most amazing shoe. Right? Because this is what I need. And if I decided what I need, it would be terrible. Does anybody have... That's
a hearsay part.
Right. Oh, yeah. Does anybody have anybody know teenagers, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that I was a teenager at one point. And I remember being a teenager. And I remember, the extent to which I thought that I knew so much more than my parents and than everyone else, right? And you see the way teenagers are. They're very they don't make the best decisions all the time, right? Think back to your own personal self 10 years ago. How much have you grown in wisdom since then? Think 20 years ago. Just go farther back. How much have you changed in your ability to make good decisions? How much has your life experience enabled you to have wisdom that you didn't have when you were younger? Right? And if you would look back at yourself at that age and you could say, don't do that. It's not the right thing for you to do. Right? So why do we think that we're any different compared to Hashem? Now, at any point in our life, we're going to do our best. We're going to try our hardest, but we do not know what is the best thing for us. The challenges that we face, we would never choose, but Hashem tells us that we need them, and that they're there to make us great. They're there to help us lower our arrogance. They're there to help us build vessels to be able to receive the tremendous light that Hashem wants to give us. They're there to enable us to be someone who can be a good spouse before I get married. They're there to enable us to be a kind, generous, good person before the money comes to me. Right? So I can be successful. And it's important. So this is where we'll hold it today. And we'll continue next week. There's a lot of really important good stuff. But before we finish, let's ask if there's any comments or questions. We're still kind of in the middle of a subject that we have to sort out. But any comments or questions or anything else to say? Chavra. And if not, we will hold there. Just I see that Myrna's on here also. I'm so sorry I didn't email you. We've been having a discussion in the WhatsApp group for the last couple of weeks that the shir for the next little while is from 8:15 to 9:15. So both Monday and Wednesday will be from 8:15 to 9:15 while we're trying to work out the shul's Ma'ariv situation. So thank you everybody for coming, and in Mitzvah Hashem, looking forward to seeing everybody, Wednesday at the same time for Likutei Moharan, and then we're back on a weekly basis. Gitten Winter, Sima. All the best everybody. Bye-bye.